we're going to learn how to use the access control extension from Gato GraphQL. The idea is to manage who can access what data from your WordPress site. Here we have the graphical client that can fetch data from within the WP admin. Let's expose also the graphical client for the single endpoint. So we go to the modules and we select the graphical for single endpoint and also the interactive schema for single endpoint, which is going to show us the schema. Okay, so now here we have this entry graphical and schema. So this client is showing what is the schema that we are exposing on our single endpoint right now. And with this client, we can select data. So currently, you can select any data, you can execute any field that we have on the schema, including any of the mutations. So let's execute a mutation, for instance, a create post. We pass an input, the title, hello friend, status, and to see if we get again the data. So we execute this mutation, and here the operation has succeeded. If we go back to the website, we go to the posts, we can see hello friend, it has been created. So let's say that we don't want people to be able to execute mutations or create posts or send emails, and we want to ban this. So this is when we can use an access control, the access control feature. So back in the website in Gato GraphQL, we go to access control lists and we create a new access control list. Here we can define for what operations, either query or mutation, or what fields, or global fields, or even directive to apply the checking for permissions. So in this case, let's start with mutations. We want to say that nobody can access the mutation, and we publish this one. Let's first give it a name. Let's say ban. Let's say access control for single endpoint, and we publish this one. All right. Next, we need to create a schema configuration for we call it schema configuration for single endpoint. And we select the access control list that we just created. We come here to the access control block, and we select the one that we just created, ACL for single endpoint, and now we publish this one. And finally, we need to assign this schema configuration to the single endpoint. So we go to the settings and endpoint configuration, single endpoint. Where is the schema configuration? We select the one that we just created. Now, when we go back to the graphical client and we execute this mutation, it says access to operation mutation has been disabled. We cannot do this anymore. Now, what happens if we do want to allow for execution of mutations? We just don't want the create post one. So we can do that. We go back to the access control. And here, instead of saying mutation, all of them, we go to the field and we say create post. Here we are. Root create post. We save this one. And now if we come here, we can see that it still doesn't work, and it says access to field create post has been disabled. Now here what we can see is that there is information saying the mutation is not available to you. It has been disabled, but the mutation still exists. So if we come to the interactive schema, let's refresh this, and we visualize the mutations, we will see that the create post is still available. Here it is, mutation root dot create post. It is available on the GraphQL schema. But what if we don't want the user to know that the mutation exists in first place? Then we can change the visibility of the schema in this section called public private schema, where it says by default it is public. Now we set it as private, and we save this. Now we execute again the same query, and the error message is there is no field create post on type mutation root. And similarly, if we refresh the schema and we check for the create post mutation, it doesn't exist. Oh, sorry. Let's go to mutation root. Here, create post. There is no create post mutation anymore. So now it has been removed from the GraphQL schema. And in this way, you can create different schemas for different custom endpoints and assign one custom endpoint that exposes this schema for this client and another custom endpoint that exposes this other schema for this other client, and so on and so forth. In addition, instead of just disabling access always, you can select for who, which is the user who will be able to access the information or not. We can choose by user capabilities, so that the logged in user needs to have any of these capabilities to be able to access the field. Or we have by user role. So the logged in user will have to be any of these, for instance, administrator. So we save now, and here in this website, I'm still logged in as the administrator. Now I can execute this, that's okay. But if I change this and I say I had to be the editor, and I save, and I execute, it has failed. It says you must have role editor to access field, create post for type mutation root. And then we can create actually more than one validation. We can also say by user state, the user has to be either logged in or not. And we can also create by visitor IP. So we say that the user needs to come for a certain IP to be able to either access the field or be denied access to the field. So in this case, okay, let's remove this one and this one. So let's say that I know that I'm coming from 127.0.0.1. So if I come from this address, deny access. Now I save this and I execute this again. And now the error message says the client IP address must not satisfy constraint return, and I do have that IP, hence I cannot access the field. Or I could say for this address you can allow access. Now if I save again and I execute, I can once again execute the mutation. And the idea is that you can, for instance, give access to a specific client, find out from which IP they come, and validate that is this IP. If not, you don't give access to the GraphQL schema. And here we can also ban by passing a regex. So instead of saying allow access to this IP, we can say 127.everything. Now, if I save, this should work once again. And if I say deny access, and I save, and I execute this once again, now I cannot access this anymore. So with access control, we can modify the schema and decide what users can access what schema. All right, I hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you.